and today I'm going to show you how to create this folded chevron border for your scrapbook pages. This tutorial has been created for the Fancy Folds Creative Design Team video collab. Our team has quite a few projects for you this month, so make sure that you click through each one. All of the links can be found in the comments below. Let's take a look at some of the supplies we're going to be using. I have the Yesterday and Today vellum die cuts, as well as the metallic die cuts that are also available with this collection. I will also be using the Yesterday and Today stickers and this beautiful old world paper pack along with some peacock cardstock. Let's get started with our project. Before I create the layout, I need to color these butterflies using my spray pen. So I have some isopropyl alcohol, some almond re-inker, and a gold shimmer brush. I'm going to remove the lid from the spray pen, unscrew the top, and add a few drops of that almond re-inker. I want my butterflies to have a little bit of sparkle, so I'm also going to add a few drops of gold shimmer from the shimmer brush, and I'm just holding it over the top, squeezing it, and allowing a few drops to go inside. Now I'm going to pour in some of the isopropyl alcohol, and I've talked about this in the past. I prefer to use alcohol over water because it dries faster. I'm going to pour the alcohol into the bottom of the spray pen. I do not want to fill it all the way to the top. When I add that lid, there's going to be a little bit of liquid displacement, and I do not want my ink to overflow. So I'm just going to fill it up partially, add the lid, and I'm ready to spray those butterflies. I'm going to start by priming my pen over here on my all-purpose mat, and then I'll start spraying the butterflies. The more you spray, the more saturated the color will be. I'll also be adding ink to these butterflies, so I'm not adding a whole lot of that almond color. I'm going to be adding some distressed features by wrinkling these butterflies up. I put on some rubber gloves so I don't end up with ink all over my hands. You're going to pick up each butterfly very carefully and ball up the paper in your hands. Now this is the benefit of using alcohol over water. The alcohol is already drying and so it's not as saturated. After you've balled them up, you're going to carefully open them and then set them aside to dry. While those dry, we can get started with the layout. I've used that spray pen to go ahead and add some spritz of color to each of these pieces of French vanilla cardstock. And you can see I've just got some in the bottom and up in the corners. I'm going to be using my VersaMat today to help me make sure that all of my papers are being laid down straight. I just place the piece of paper down on the top of the VersaMat that has the grid, and I'm going to use some Post-it tape to adhere the paper down onto the corners. This just keeps it in place while I adhere my strips of paper. I received this straight edge with my Holtz multimedia mat, and it works really well to measure across the grid lines of the VersaMat, and that's what I'm going to use today as I'm laying down my strips of paper. As you can see here, I've laid that straight edge across the bottom at the 1-inch mark, and I'm just going to be placing that bottom piece of paper down, using that straight edge to make sure that it's nice and straight across the paper, and then I'll layer down the other 3 strips. Now I'm going to lay a zip strip down that's been cut in half at 1/4 inch, and this is just going to go right across the top. The next step is to add a little bit of ink to this scallop border and then place it underneath the peacock cardstock. There is going to be something over here on the left, so I'm not worried about it going all the way across. This was created using my Cricut machine, and I used the slice and weld features, and I'll show you how I did that next week on my blog. Now we're going to put together page 2, and I'm going to be placing that on my VersaMat, and I've laid page 1 over there on the left so that I can line everything up. I'm going to place that straight edge down again at the bottom and use it to make sure that my paper goes straight across the page. Now I just need to lay down the remaining paper strips. I have this peacock strip going horizontally, then this postcard paper that's going to go across the top. I've got that other half of the zip strip that I'm going to place above that, and that scallop border below. I also have this piece of gridded paper that I have torn and distressed with some almond ink that'll go over on the left side of the page. Now both pages are complete. Off camera, I did add some stitching across the top, and I also added some stitching along the border using my sewing machine. The next step is to add that chevron border that we're going to create with folded paper. I've cut these paper strips at 1 inch by 2.5 inch, and they're going to be folded to create our chevron border across the top. As you can see, when they're laid down, they create this beautiful chevron and diamond pattern that'll go across the top. You can fold these by hand. I'm going to slow down the video and show you how to do that. This first one's going to go down and to the right, then up and to the left. The second piece is going to go up and to the right and down to the left. As much as I enjoy folding paper, I did find a faster way to do this in Design Space. Let me show you how. Here I have my partially designed project, and I'm going to insert a square shape. We're going to need to unlock it so that I can change the size to 2.5 wide by 1 inches tall. I'm going to change the color just so it's a little bit easier for us to see those score lines, and change it to the lighter color of brown that we're going to be cutting this out of. I'm going to be using the positioning tool to place that rectangle into the upper left-hand corner of the canvas. Both X and Y equals 0. I'm going to insert a score line, change the size to 1 inch high, then rotate it 45 degrees. Now I did notice after I rotated it, the width changed, and I need that width to be 1 inch, so I'm just going to go up and change the size again to 1 inch before placing it over the rectangle. To ensure that it's placed exactly in that corner, I'm going to change the X position to 0 and the Y position to 0. Now I'm going to duplicate the score line and place it in the other corner by changing the X position to 1.5 inches and the Y position to 0. And now I've created 2 of the diagonal lines I'm going to need for one of the chevron folds. Now I want to select all of these images and duplicate them so that I can create the next chevron fold. Before I do that, I want to attach these 2 score lines to the rectangle. To create this second chevron fold, I need to flip this diagonal line to the opposite direction. So I'm just going to flip horizontal, repeat the process with the second line, and then they are all lined up in the corners and ready for the second fold. Again, I need to select those 3 objects and attach them so that the score lines are attached to the rectangle. Now I'm going to duplicate each one of these rectangles that I've created. You will need to know the length of your border to determine how many of these shapes you're going to need. So each one of them folded is going to have a width of 1 inch. My border has a span of 10 inches, which means that I'm going to need 5 of one chevron shape and 5 of the other chevron shape, and then I'll always have 1 extra just in case I need to finagle anything. If these rectangles were a 1/2 inch wide, then I would need more shapes. A 10-inch border would require 20 shapes, 10 of each design. This is just something you need to think about as you're creating the cuts and shapes for your chevron borders. Let's go back to creating that layout, and let me show you how I build the border with these chevron cuts. Now that my Cricut has cut and scored all of these rectangles, you can see right here each one has a nice little score line for me to fold on. As I said, this is something you could do by hand, but I often get confused whether I need to go up or I need to go down. Do I go left? Do I go right? By designing them in Design Space, I now have 2 sets of shapes ready to be folded and placed on the border. I've divided my rectangles into 2 piles, and I am forming that border across the page. And you can see as the 2 tips touch, it creates that diamond shape we're looking for along with the chevron border. At this point, I'm just dry fitting them. Each one of those triangles has a little bit of a variation of color, and I want to make sure the opposing triangle matches. Now that the design is in place, I can go in with my tape runner and glue down each one of these little folded rectangles. As I'm gluing them down, they are going to form that chevron pattern with those light diamonds. Now remember how I said this should stretch across the span of the page. Unfortunately, I completely forgot to draw my 2.5 inch line above that peacock cardstock. You need to draw that line. It helps you make sure the tips at the top are where they need to be and that each chevron is at the right angle. Now, because I did not do that, I end up with a small gap at the end, but I am going to show you how to fix it. So here I am with that awkward gap at the end of the border. I'm going to fix it by grabbing one of the rectangles, gluing the flap shut. So that little fold is going to be adhered closed, placing the rectangle down on the page, and then I'll just use a pair of scissors or my trimmer to trim off the end. And you'll never know that I made the little mistake. I'm going to repeat these steps with the second page. Again, dry fitting each one of those folded rectangles, making sure that the patterns on the diamond pieces match. I'm just going to go across the page with each one of these cut chevrons, then tuck the final one under that gridded piece of paper. Now that both of the borders are done, we can start decorating with the yesterday and today stickers and die cuts. Before I do that, I'm going to take this ribbon that I dyed with the leftover almond spray and create a bow to fill that gap next to the scallop border. In my lilac dragonfly card tutorial, I show you how to dye our white ribbon with re-inkers. This was dyed with that alcohol ink, crinkled up, and now I'm forming the bow that'll go right here next to the scallop border. I've also added some ribbon on the right page, and I'm creating a decorative knot that will be attached at the top of the ribbon. I'm going to be embellishing the right page with a vellum die cut, a bronze tag from the metallic die cuts, this leaf sticker from the sticker sheet, and another sticker that says, "Love this family." On the left page, I've placed another vellum die cut and I'm tucking a sticker leaf underneath. At the top of the page, I have another vellum die cut and I'm placing this metal index tab above all of the photos along with a little sentiment sticker. Remember those butterflies I created earlier? Now they are all dry and ready to use. I'm going to bend up the wings of this butterfly die cut, place some adhesive down the center, and glue it atop the distressed peacock butterfly I cut using my Cricut. This butterfly is going to be layered on top of one of the vellum die cuts here, next to the 3x3 photo. The remaining butterflies are going to be scattered on the pages throughout the rest of the layout. Now that I've decided where everything's going to go, I can start adhering everything to the page. These photo placeholders are just temporary. I have some photos in the basement of my husband's great-grandparents, but they are original photos, and I wanted to wait until I got copies of those prints. Once that's done and I have those on the page, I will repost a photo of this completed layout on one of my social media platforms. Now I'm just adding adhesive to the back of each one of these die cut pieces. This rose was cut from the larger rose sticker on the sticker sheet, and I chose to use it because it matches the other sticker leaves that I have on the layout. The full title on the sticker sheet reads, "Where Life Begins and Love Never Ends," but like I said, these are going to be photos of my husband's great-grandparents, and I felt the title, "Where Life Begins," fit much better. I just realized I never showed you how these butterflies turned out. That almond ink has a slight blue patina to it as it dried, which was a wonderful surprise because it matches the peacock blue on my layout. I always love unexpected surprises like that. This title was originally just a set of stickers, and I felt like they were kind of floating at the top here. So I'm using these sticker clips to make it look like they're being clipped to the page. To complete this layout, I added some loops of gold embellishing thread behind the title and a knot of embellishing thread on that bronze tag. I hope that you enjoyed creating today's project and that you were able to learn how to create this fancy fold chevron border for your scrapbook pages. These borders can also be used for cards. I hope you also learned a little bit more about using the Cricut and a few new ways to use our yesterday and today embellishments. The next person in our creative design team video collab hop is Julie. Make sure that you click on her link in the comments below and then continue through the rest of this video collab hop to see all of the wonderful fancy fold projects our creative design team has for you. I hope you enjoyed today's project and it inspired you to try something new. New projects are added every week to my blog and YouTube channel. If you enjoyed my Fancy Fold project and wish to see more in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you wish to see any of our past Creative Design Team video collab projects, you can click on that collection button above. Now head on over to Julie's YouTube channel and see her wonderful Fancy Fold project. I hope you have a wonderful week and I can't wait to see what you create.